Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fairway Performance Podcast. This week we're joined by a man by the name of Cameron Strachan, and he's a fellow Australian living up in Toowoomba in Brisbane there. And I first heard of him a couple of weeks ago when I did a podcast with Mike Leonard from Wicked Smart Golf, and he said that I must have Cam on and dive into some of Cam's content. And I have done that in the past sort of week or so since meeting Cam, and I really enjoy what he's got to say, particularly about putting. So that's what we're going to get stuck into today. But did you want to first say good day to the audience, Cam, and just give us a quick backstory about who you are and where you've come from?
Yeah. Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's great to be here. And I've got to say, Mike Leonard's been awesome for me. He's got a great podcast, that Wicked Smart Podcast, and he's actually done very well with his putting. So, yeah, he endorses it. So it's been awesome. And my backstory, quickly, without trying to bore everyone, is that I think my story is quite common, because I speak to a lot of golfers, and I've been doing this for a long time, over nearly 25 years. And I started when I was 14, and I was hopeless. My first game out, I scored about 156, I think it was, and my second game I got worse. I was in the 160s. So I had no natural talent for the game, but I was hooked on it. I was a soccer player back in the day when I was 14. I quickly gave up soccer and focused on golf. But within 12 months, I'd shot a par round. My first handicap was 11, but I quickly got that down to sort of 6 and 7. And then my play attracted the attention of the local coaches, and I won a scholarship. And then it was then I had to start having lessons all the time. But it was also then where I sort of got stuck and I started to struggle. I had an air swing. I couldn't hit the ball very well. I got frustrated. I was practicing hard, but I just couldn't get this, couldn't get the bloody ball in the hole. And I stumbled onto natural learning. My dad basically gave me a kick up the bum and said, "Cameron, this is rubbish. You used to be a good player. Now you're hopeless. Get rid of the coaches." And it also sort of coincided with a member of my club giving me a book called The Inner Game of Golf by Tim Galway. And that really resonated with me. So at that point, I pretty much gave up all the coaching and was able to get my game back. That's the really abbreviated version. I got my game back, and I really haven't looked back since. I've written books on it. I was lucky enough to work with a guy called Aaron Baddeley way back when we were sort of both juniors. He went on to become one of the best putters in the world. So, yeah, I've written a book on my putting ideas and been writing ever since, to be honest. And, now with the internet age going into podcasts, I'm doing more of these podcasts and getting interviewed, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and the story about Aaron Baddeley and how you actually worked with him and how you actually thought you didn't do that much for him, but it actually helped him a lot, I actually really resonated with. Did you want to share that?
Yeah, so Aaron, obviously, he won the Australian Open. I think it was in 1999. He won his first of 2 Australian Opens. As an amateur, he won it. And later, a few years later, I was over in Arizona. I went and stayed with him, and we're out playing at TPC Scottsdale. At Scottsdale, the golf course there, where they have that amazing 16th hole with 40,000 people around it. They go nuts, throwing beer and carrying on like college kids do. So we played there, and I was on the second day. He was just putting so well. I couldn't believe it. He was holding everything. And I said, "Mate, your putting is phenomenal." And he sort of looked at me and said, "Who taught me how to putt?" And I went, "Well, I don't know, mate. Old mate coach from back in Melbourne days." He goes, "No, you idiot, you did." And I said, "Yeah, but that was really basic what I showed you." And he goes, "Yeah, but it worked. And I still do it today." So he encouraged me to write a book. So I pretty much drafted the first copy of the book on the way home in the plane from USA back to good old Melbourne, and that's how it sort of kicked off. The ideas were very simple, but I've since realised, since studying learning and human performance, that simple really does work, and our learning systems thrive on it. So yeah, I've almost made a career from it.
And what was the secret message that actually transpired in that quick lesson that you gave him?
Trust your learning system. So it's
Okay.
not like golf. Or putting especially, because it's not a physically demanding skill. Like, we're not trying to lift 300 kilos of weight. It's not overly technical. Like a 5-year-old kid can putt and a 99-year-old can putt. Learn to trust your learning system. It's no harder than throwing or catching a ball. And that was probably the big takeaway. And Aaron really embraced it. And even today, he still puts very well.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that? What do you mean by it's as easy as throwing and catching a ball? Like,
well, if I was to stand here now, I know we're on camera, and you're down in Sydney, and I'm up here in amazing Toowoomba. But if I was going to throw you a ball, I've got no doubt you'd be able to just reach out and catch it, And then if I asked you to throw it back to me, you'd look at me and you'd throw it back to me and I'd be able to catch it. And if I walk further away or came closer or you walk further away, we'd be able to throw and catch that ball, no worries. Well, that's in a really, really simple way. That's how we can approach a skill like putting and do very well with it.
Yeah, right. And why is that? Is that because we've practiced this thing before, or is that because we're using like a certain motor control, or like how does that work?
Well, most especially Aussie kids and US kids, we as young kids we throw and catch a ball a lot, so we can appreciate the simplicity of that skill. At a scientific level, throwing is quite a well researched skill, and there's actually a technical scientific term, throwing. So just for humans, it works for us. It makes something that's quite complex really easy, and we all can appreciate how simple throwing is. A lot of us, when it comes to putting or any skill for that matter, and especially in golf, we overcomplicate it. We think about our grip, we think about our stance, we think about our posture, our forearm plane, our wrist angles, and that tends to overload us. And as a result, when we go to the course, our mind's spinning, and we really can't perform optimally. We struggle, we miss a putt, we get nervous, we get anxious, and the more you do it, the worse we get, and that can lead to the yips and severe forms of nervousness and anxiety and fear, and we can't putt our best. So that's why you can see some really good ball strikers, whether it be on the US tour or the amateur tours. Good golfers are really good at hitting the ball. Some of them can't putt. They actually get so anxious and so nervous on the putting green, and they've done that because they've disrupted their learning system.
Yeah, and like with all the golfers that you work with, because I know that the majority of the guys that you work with, I've heard you talk about this before, they're professionals and they're successful in their careers in other avenues and work and whatnot.
Yeah.
What are the mistakes that they're making on the putting green in particular? Like, are there sort of 2 or 3 or 4 like really common ones that you see a lot that this system, the look and shoot method helps with?
Yeah, good question. I call them the accountant types. So they're not always golf professionals, but they're professionals in their life. So they're accountants, they're doctors, they're lawyers. They're very smart people and typically very successful. And they approach those professions with a lot of left brain thinking. So they have to analyze. They have to, like a judge, for example, has to read a lot, has to think a lot. But if you often apply those same principles to golf or to putting, you can completely disrupt your system. So look and shoot tends to work really well for older golfers who are sort of 35 and above, because they've gone around they've been around the block a few times. They've tried all the theories. They've tried really hard. They've bought new putters. They've heard all the theories. They've tried different grips. They've tried everything, and they get to a point where they get sick of it, and they think, I need a change. I need to do something different. And that's what automatic golf or natural learning offers. It gives you a chance to get away from all the technical thinking and approach golf in a more natural, more instinctive way. And it just makes it more fun, because we're actually all hardwired to learn. We all have the same capacity to learn. Not everyone, and my research suggests only 2% of golfers can fully embrace the technical theories. So that leaves roughly 98% of us who can't embrace all that technique. So when you get a different approach that bypasses all the technical aspects, your learning system shines, golf becomes more fun, putting becomes easier, and as a result, you get more enjoyment and satisfaction. So you're ticking a lot of boxes.
Yeah, bloody oath. It's one of the things that I try and help people with as well. Like, if you're taking it to the subconscious level, and we're like just sort of looking and shooting essentially as the book goes. If we're doing that a little bit and our body moves really well because we're fit and strong and able and mobile and all that sort of thing, then it all will sort of blend together. If we've got restriction in our mind, restriction in our body, and that's causing some, dissonance there or some problems, then we're probably not going to get the most out of what we have.
Yeah, that's one of the breakthroughs I made, Sean, was that I couldn't understand how I hit the ball so well. So when I got to 17, 18, 19 years of age, and my ball striking was quite good. I was able to hit the ball long. I hit a lot of greens. I can recall a time where I hit a 3-wood, cross bunkers onto the green to about 4 feet, and then I 3-putted. And I got frustrated because I was like, well, I can do all this. And even my mates and some of the older members of my club would say, Cameron, you're a nut. Like, you hit the ball so well, why can't you putt? And I knew it wasn't physical, because I hit the ball so well, so I had the physical skills. Surely I could make putting work. But yeah, it was because I was completely completely overloading, completely disrupting my learning system. And years later, when I got to work with some sports scientists, biomechanists, some of the smartest people on the planet that I've ever met, like they were phenomenally interesting guys to work with. One of them said, Cameron, if we analyse too much on how to walk down a flight of stairs, we'd end up in a heap at the bottom. And I've never forgotten that. And that's pretty much what I did with putting. I did to a certain degree with my golf swing, but the putting, I completely lost the plot. And I think we do that because subconsciously we think, putting's easy. It's just there's no power involved. It's it's a pretty simple skill, but we try and override that skill with too much thought, too much technique, and we get disrupted, and our learning system shuts down. And I believe that's how we feel the yips and we get the extreme nervousness on the greens.
Yeah, it's I see so many people struggle with it. Like I played the other day with a friend who's just going for his handicap. And actually, I've played 2 rounds recently with people who are just going for the handicaps. And one of the guys, he had like 7 3-putts during the round, and it wasn't for any lack of anything else except for him standing up and having like 10 practice swings behind the ball and like adjusting his hands and like thinking about all this stuff, and then getting up to the ball and then either leaving it 6 feet short or 10 feet past. Like he was thinking about so much other stuff that the lag, he just left that out of his mind. And that's exactly what was causing him the problems. Was he was leaving, it was pretty much online, and his, stroke looked okay, but his speed control was just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and to me that's a sign, and I've seen it for 25 years. It's a sign that the golfer is trying too hard. They're thinking too much about their technique. They're thinking about how hard do I need to hit it, and it's almost impossible. Like it's there's no way really of consciously figuring out how hard to hit that putt. You've got to look at the putt. You can even walk up and down the length of the putt, and that will help you with a feel. But at some point, you've got to let go and go, you know what, the ball's here, the hole's there. Let's just hit the ball towards the hole. And again, it's no harder than throwing that ball to someone. You look at them and you throw the ball almost always with perfect speed. If I was going to throw a ball to you from 10 metres, I wouldn't, take your head off and it wouldn't bounce 3 times. I'd just look at you and I'd throw the ball and, it'd come to you at the perfect speed and the perfect height. Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about it. Let's dive into it a little bit further. So especially like using this example of my friend who was standing back, taking 10 practice swings, then stepping up to the ball, still hovering over it for a small amount of time, like maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and then putting and leaving it 6 feet short or 10 feet past. So how does this system apply to him, and how can he start to incorporate it and work with it?
Yeah, sure. The first thing is we've got to get him out of his thinking. We've got to stop his wheels from spinning, because the chances are your friend is thinking so much. He's worried about his grip and his stance and where he's aiming, and he's thinking, how hard do I have to hit it? And he's also probably saying, oh, geez, I hope I don't 3-putt this again. I've 3-putted the last 4 greens, and Sean's going to think I'm an absolute packer. I want to try and get a good handicap. So he's got a lot of internal dialogue going on. So we've got to try and break that. So a great strategy that I like to use is I call it a mental distraction technique. And it can be as simple as counting numbers in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or singing a song. And this might sound a bit strange when you first hear it, but it's actually also very normal. Most of the time when we're driving our car, we're not thinking about how to drive the car. We're looking where we want to go, but we've got the music on, or we're chatting to one of the passengers. So this mental distraction technique is very normal. So if you can sing your favourite song in your head or count numbers, that's going to distract your conscious mind for the duration of the putt, and it's going to bring your instinctive putting skill, your instinctive putting game to the surface, and it's going to maximise your chances of rolling that ball at the right speed on the right direction towards the hole.
Yeah, right. And I love, can you share your go-to song that you use? Because I heard this.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
I had a bit of a laugh, yeah.
Yeah, because I couldn't.
That's awesome.
When they handed out music appreciation, I was out playing golf or soccer or something, or hitting tennis balls. So I've got virtually no musical appreciation. I've probably got a little bit more as I've gotten older. But yeah, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. So that's quite funny when you're playing pennant matches in Melbourne, and I was singing out loud sometimes, and I got really nervous, and I got some very strange looks. Or I was counting numbers as well. So I like counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it just goes on. And so, yeah, you get some very strange looks when you start verbalising that out, so people can hear you.
Yeah. And so talk me through this applying into a putt. So My friend's lining up for it. He's standing back behind the putt. Where does he start singing, and like where does it finish? Like once he hits the ball, or just before it?
So I like golfers to imagine a line behind the ball, and it's an imaginary line. It might be 2 or 3 meters behind the ball. And when you're standing behind the line with the ball in front of you, you can pretty much do whatever you like. You can think, you can analyze, you can panic, you can talk about the weather, you can practice your putting stroke, you can think about the technique that you read on or saw on the Golf Channel or in one of the golf magazines. But once you cross that line, you're playing golf or you're putting, and that's where you start the mental distraction technique. You're counting or singing a song. There's different variations of mental distraction technique. There's more advanced options, but counting or singing a song is a really good start for most. So you start counting as you get to that imaginary line, and once you cross that line, you're fully immersed in the counting or singing in the song. And then you just got to trust that your learning system is capable, which it is, of getting set up, getting aligned, and then being able to stroke the ball towards your target.
Yeah, cool. I sort of employ some of those already without without actually having ever heard of your content or whatever. And I think anyone who has a line on their ball when they're putting already does that. So essentially for me, I'm trying to not think about what line I'm going to hit it on. I set the line up, make sure that it's at my target or the point that I'm aiming for, the apex of the putt, whatever you want it to be. And then literally all I do when I stand over the ball is I just take my stroke. I don't have any practice swings. I don't do anything. I just line it up, look at the hole, look back, and then just go for it. And I've heard Jason Day does this as well. Is this, I guess that's very similar to, like I'm taking away some of the complex thoughts of lining it up. And I'm literally just thinking about how far to throw the ball, right?
It's brilliant. So once you're behind the ball, I call that Einsteining. And so you're thinking about your upcoming putt, or you're thinking about something else, but you can do pretty much, as I said, anything you like. Obviously, you might be choosing a line, and part of lining up your ball, I know when you're lining up your ball, you've crossed that imaginary line, but let's pretend that you haven't crossed that line. You're lining it up. That's a form of Einsteining. And then you might back away, check your line one more time, and then when you walk in, you're just focused on rolling the ball along that line. Your imaginary line on the ball, just a continuation of that line. A brilliant form of automatic golf, natural learning. It's very instinctive, it's very normal, and you're minimising the amount of conscious thought because I'm assuming you're not thinking about how far to take the putter away. You're not thinking about your ball position. You're not thinking about your head. You're just simply rolling the ball along a continuation of that line that you draw on your ball.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very simple. It's very simple. So what part of the look and shoot process is about simplification. It really is. It's about taking all the other garbage away and just focusing on the 1 or 2 key areas that has the most impact, it gives you the most bang for your buck. Because typically technique, if you think about your worst round you've ever had or the worst putting round, you're probably thinking about lots and lots of things. And if I ask you to try and remember your best putting round, for the most part, and I've asked thousands of golfers this question, but for the most part, when I ask them about their best rounds, they have trouble remembering what they were doing. They have some sort of awareness that they're trying to roll a ball towards a target, but for the most part, they're not thinking technically. They're thinking naturally. They've got a mental distraction technique going on in their head, but they're not thinking mechanics. They're thinking, ball here, get it in the hole.
Yeah, well, essentially that's like being in the zone, right? You're
100%. Well, you can't get in the zone if you're thinking about 3 million things. If you're only thinking about one key thought, you've got a much better chance of getting in the zone. Our brains don't really do 2 things well at once. We do one thing at a time really well. If you try and do 2 things at a time, and there's been umpteen studies that have proven this. Males typically think when we drive a car that we can, check our mobile phones and do 300 other things. Well, we can't. We've really got to, we do one thing really well. Okay. We can't do 2, very hard to do 2 things at a time well.
Yeah, unless you're a woman. Women can do that.
Well, I do want to say that, Sean. You said that. Good luck with your projects.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the women will appreciate that. Cool. Now, obviously, we've talked about this system with putting. Does it apply to all clubs through the bag? Like, can we use a similar approach to all clubs
100%.
through the bag? Or
100%. Learning is learning, and it applies to everything. So a really good coach, and I don't care if the coach is a coach in netball or basketball, a really good coach should be able to help any other could coach anyone in any sort of endeavor, any hobby, any sport. And Absolutely. So learning is learning. So my best clients 100% apply the principles inside look and shoot to all parts of the game. Their short game, their iron play, the whole lot, the full game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Nothing really changes. It's a simple process. The reason it works well for putting is it gives, my experience with the golf swing is golfers are massively passionate with their golf swing. It's something they treat like a fragile baby or something that's going to break, so they don't really like touching it, whereas they're more inclined to give automatic golf this natural learning caper a go on the putting green. They tend to be less emotional about it, and then once they see the benefits of what it can do for their putting, they're more inclined then to, hey, maybe I can try it with my full swing, or maybe I can try it with my short game or bunker play or whatever it is.
Yeah, because I've got a few friends that literally stand behind the ball and they're thinking about 10 different things in their swing, and they're generally the ones that go off the rails. Like, they don't end up playing that well, and they sort of give me shit. They're like, "Oh, you're just naturally athletic. Like, that's why you're really good." And I'm like, "Well, no, I actually don't really have swing thoughts. Like, I literally know that I pretty much hit a fade with my driver, and my irons go pretty straight or have a tiny bit of a draw. I just look at my target, pick a target 6 feet in front, set up behind the ball, and just hit it. And I just see ball, hit ball. Like, that's literally what I say to them." And what's your thoughts on that? Like,
I've been dealing with that for nearly 30 years, or probably over 30 years.
Yeah.
Cameron, this automatic golf stuff, it sounds awesome. I sort of understand what you're saying, but it's easy for you because you're just so naturally gifted. You hit the ball so well and you're talented and rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I never used to be. Like, when I was 18, 19, 20, I couldn't bust eggs. I was hopeless. Like, I'd be able to play well sort of midweek with my mates, but then I get to the competition on the weekend and I'd choke. I'd shoot. There's a classic one of me in a practice round. I shot 6 under, and in the tournament proper, I shot 93, I think it was. Like, I did that sort of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But then once I figured it all out, once it made sense and I really applied it, I was able to, shoot way better scores more consistently. And I just approached, the game very instinctively, very naturally. And I encourage lots of people. I've been banging on about this natural golf. No, it's not natural golf, natural learning, automatic golf for, nearly 25 years. And, I haven't really changed my message. But, people still say, oh, yeah, it's okay for you to say, but, it's got nothing to do with me. It's just how we learn. It's 98% of us would benefit greatly from thinking less and learning to trust our inbuilt learning system.
Yeah. And so going back in your story, so when you said that you got a little bit of coaching, and then as soon as you got that scholarship and you got the coaching and your dad told you to get rid of the coach because you played better, what was it that you actually found in yourself? Or like, how did you come across this natural learning? Were you starting to research it then and like learn about it, or did you just go back to like no swing thoughts and you're like, well, hang on, this works, like there could be something in this, and that led you to research? Or like, what was the sort of tipping point there?
The tipping point was the book, The Inner Game of Golf. And I actually shared that book with a good mate of mine. I think he's one of Australia's best coaches. He doesn't coach golf. He's actually a terrible golfer, old Scotty. He's useless, but he doesn't mind me saying that. But he loves coaching, and he coaches. He's coached Olympians and AFL players, and CEOs and executives. He read the book. It was probably 2021, but he said the book was ahead of its time, even though that book was written in 1974 or 5. That was a catalyst. And then it also coincided with my dad telling me to stop thinking about the swing and the golf so much, go and play and just trust yourself. I mean, my dad's a straight shooter. He was very successful in business, but he didn't beat around the bush. He tended to trust himself and not get caught up in all the hoo-ha, and he calls it bullshit. But, I sort of applied it myself, and it made sense to me. It just felt good. I can remember one of the first games out where I wasn't thinking about my swing and about how to putt and anything like that. I was just playing freely. It was just like taking the straitjacket off. Had a freedom and an enthusiasm and a deeper satisfaction and appreciation of the game. And when you can drive to the course and before you get there you're going to play well or you're going to putt well, it's a pretty powerful feeling. And I never had that prior. I had it when I first started playing, when I got down to past scores within 12 months. But once I'd started the lessons and thinking about backswing playing and eyes over the ball and how far back to take the putter, golf was awful. It was actually, honestly, it was horrific. And the harder I tried and the more I practiced, the worse I got. And I didn't realize at the time, but the very thing I was doing to get better was actually causing me all the grief.
Yeah. And so you reckon 2% of golfers would get better from doing that process, and 98% wouldn't?
Well, it's only my research, and look, they're not hard and fast percentages, but I'm talking about fully being able to embrace the technical mindset. You know, if we look at our golf club, there's probably always one golfer that's really technical and can talk about swing theory and putting mechanics and whatnot, and still play pretty well. But there's also guys that think they can talk about it and think they can apply it, but they're bloody hopeless.
Yeah.
But yeah, for most of us self-destruct if you do it too long. You know, I've got nothing against technique. If you love, going deep into putting mechanics or swing theory, by all means do it. But at some point, you've got to leave it behind and go play, because that's where you've got to enter the arena, go play. That's where the enjoyment is. That's where satisfaction lives. And ultimately, if you can't go to the course and express yourself naturally in a free-flowing way, I think you'll never, ever get anywhere near your full potential.
Yeah. And so just there, when you say that technique and everything does have a place, where do you place that? Because obviously on the course we want to employ this method and follow this look and shoot method for putting and for our any club through the bag. Where and what time do we apply a bit of the mechanics and the technical thinking and learning about maybe an inside to out swing path and how that shapes the shot a certain way and that sort of thing?
Yeah, good question. I've got a bit of I'm not saying it's radical, but it's probably slightly different from what many people have heard. But I would do, my recommendation, keeping in mind that I might not be a great person here, because I haven't had a lesson in 20 odd years. I don't. Never work on my swing. I don't work on my putting technique. But if you are going to work on things, the radical thought is do it at home. Do it away from the golf course. So practice your putting on the carpet. If you're lucky enough to have a backyard golf green at home, do all your technical stuff at home. Don't do it all the time. Like, at some point, you've got to, again, train yourself to putt freely, putt instinctively. So, but when you do go to the golf course, you're playing golf, you're putting. You're not trying to remember something you saw in Golf Digest or something you heard the commentators talking about, Rory McIlroy. You're actually bringing your putting stroke to the course, and you're letting go. You're putting freely. To me, that's the best way to do it. Do your technique away from the course. Leave the golf course for playing golf.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I've been lucky enough now to just move into this place that we're in, and I've literally just down behind the computer here, I've got a nice little net set up and a perfect little mat, like a driving range mat, and a Garmin R10 launch monitor. So I do all my technical side of things there, and I've had a real problem with early extension and having to fix that, because it's just been plaguing me with big snap hooks and blocks for my whole life, learning as a kid, having to use my legs to get all the power. But now, you can't see them, but my shoulders are a bit broader after all this gym work. So I don't need all that power from the legs. But I'll focus on all my technique work downstairs and video myself and everything else. And I'm just working on like 1 to 2 things at a time. Then when I go to the course, I don't really think about that stuff too much. I just go there and I just hit balls, and I just want to see how far I'm hitting them that day based on the weather conditions and what shot shape I'm hitting. So if it's just for that day, like if it just seems to be going right to left and it seems to, and my miss is going left, I'll just be like, okay, cool. Like, that's what I'm working with today. I'm just going to aim a little further right at the target, and I just factor that into what I'm doing, and I just go for it. And I think that's where a lot of amateurs run into problems, is they're trying to adjust all of those things on the course without, like getting to hit multiple balls with the same club to see the same result happening, or to get a feel for where their miss is that day. Does this make sense, or do you hear this with
I
other
could talk
golfers?
about this stuff. I could talk about all this for weeks weeks without stopping. I mean, I've devoted my life to this, and you make some really good points. And we're probably drifting away from the putting, but I'm happy to go there.
Sorry.
Like most amateurs, and it's a very general term, and I'm almost uncomfortable saying most, because it doesn't mean everyone, but a lot of amateur golfers, when they practice, they're either thinking too much about their swing, trying to get the right swing plane or the grip or the stance or the ball flight, and they're also trying for perfection. They're trying to get the perfect shot. And so when they go to the golf course on Saturday morning and they're warming up and they've got a bit of a hook, or they're not hitting good shots, or they don't feel good, those golfers really struggle to take that game right then in that moment to the golf course. But the reality is that golf is a hard game, and some days we're going to feel a bit ordinary. Some days we're going to have a bit of a draw or a hook, and other days we're going to have a push or a slice, or we don't feel 100%. But we've got to learn to play with it. Like we can't change reality. We've got to get out there and be able to play. And this is the difference between the technical mindset and a learning methodology, which is what I'm massively passionate about. That's what automated golf's about. It's a learning methodology. We can train ourselves to deal with almost anything the game can throw at us, and we can find a way to get the ball from point A to point B in the least amount of fuss and maximise. And again, I'm saying maximise. I'm not saying guaranteed, but we're maximising our chances of success.
Yeah, I love it. And to get back onto the putting train, because that's where we are.
Yeah.
So I sort of asked about it before, but what were when someone comes to you and they're saying, hey, like, this has fixed my putting, it's eliminated me from thinking about, X, Y, and Z. What are some of these things that people can be, conscious of or look out for that they're, thinking too much for their stroke? Like you mentioned grip pressure and what are some of the things that come up?
It could be a really long list, Sean, because golfers we're bloody a strange bunch of people, especially adult males, the accountant types. They'll think about anything and they'll try almost anything to start putting well. So the list it goes on and on. Like golfers will think about their big toe, their head, their eye position, their eyelash position, their ear positions. Do they breathe in or out, during the putt, all sorts of stuff. When golfers typically get away from all that and they experience success and they write to me and tell me that it's going well, a huge issue, and this might not be answering your question, but it's quite interesting anyway, is that a big issue is that they fall back into their old ways and then they'll write to me 3 months later. I think I had 3 emails over the weekend, basically saying the same thing. And they'll say, Cameron, what am I doing wrong? I've lost the plot. I was going really well with look and shoot. Now I'm not going well. But they'll basically answer their question in their email because they'll say that, they've bought a new putter and they're trying to keep their eyes over the ball or they're thinking about their backstroke. So I've got to encourage them to go back and read the book and apply the principles. So there's no magic here. Like there's nothing sexy about peak performance. There's nothing sexy about playing your best golf. Often, once you find something that's working, you've just got to stick to it and do it over and over and over again. I know a lot of people out there will go, oh, that sounds like rubbish. How can that work? But the thing is, our natural learning system is so powerful. Once we learn something, it's almost impossible to unlearn it. And if we just keep following the same process, we'll get a little bit better each time we play. That doesn't always mean you're going to have 24 putts, but on your good day, when everything goes well, you're feeling confident and you get a bit of luck, you could have 24, 25 putts. I think the record in my group of golfers, and now I've sold the book to about 30,000 people, I think is 19 putts for 18 holes. That's the record, the lowest. And I've got umpteen emails and endorsements from people saying they've had 20 putts, 21 putts, which is phenomenal. But on average, I like golfers to get somewhere around the 29, 30 putts per round on average. That works. That means you're, for the most part, maximising your potential and your scoring potential.
Yeah, you're probably getting up and down a couple of times out of that. You're probably making a couple of birdies in that with the one putts, and you're probably shooting a pretty good score.
100. It's very hard to put a blanket statement that applies to everyone because everyone is different. Everyone's got different handicaps. Some people flush the ball and they hit 17 greens around. Other people hit it all over the place and hit no greens, and they're chipping and putting a lot. So, but yeah, look, it comes down to your own ability. But if you do fall off the wagon, if you have been putting well, and then all of a sudden, it's not going so well, there's an opportunity there to, think deeply about your game, use some insight, write things down in the diary. But I can almost guarantee that when you're putting poorly, over a period of time, one round doesn't mean you've got the yips or you've lost the plot. We all can have a bad day. But if you're having poor rounds consistently, see it as an opportunity to dig deep and, really look at your game without the rose-coloured glasses on. And I can almost guarantee that you're overthinking, you're trying too hard. You're not thinking about your intention. You're thinking about something else, your mechanics or your head position or something completely random, which isn't going to help you play your best.
Yeah, cool. I hope one day I can be one of those testimonials with 19 putts. That'll be awesome if I can write that email too.
No, I would be happy to receive it. Yeah, I mean, I think my best round is 23 putts in a round of golf. Look, I don't even keep stats anymore. I've long since given up on that. I just play golf, and I tee it up and play, have fun, and I call myself half-handy these days. I don't play much. I'm busy with work and family life, but yeah, I'm very passionate about automated golf because I can still go out there and be, somewhat competitive still, even though getting old and overweight and don't practice at all, like virtually don't practice.
You just go out and play during the week,
just go out and play.
Or whenever you play, yeah.
Yeah, and even though I've got a sore back or a stiff knee or I don't feel good, I don't try not to focus on that. I just focus on what I'm trying to do and play as freely and as automatically as possible on every shot. And again, that maximizes my chances of success. And it still, just still blows my mind, just in my own little world, how I can play. I played just recently over Christmas in a golf day, and I teamed up with a mate of mine in a 4-ball, and we scored 52 points in a Stableford match. I think I had 7 or 8 birdies. I just, sinking putts, hitting long drives, and I hadn't played for months. We had Christmas and drinking and carrying on, put on weight, eating too much. But, I was able to go out and just be completely instinctive and automatic, and it just clicks. Yeah, it was awesome, good fun.
Yeah, there's also no expectations when you're like that as well, so you're a little free in that sense too. You're not like you haven't gone out the week before and played a bad round, so you're expecting to play bad, or played good and expecting to shoot a good score or whatever. So
expectations is typically helps. Future pacing, so you're getting ahead of yourself. It's no better than thinking about your bad round you had last week. So you're best just to stay in the moment, in the present, and they're quite common catchphrases in golf. But you need a process to be able to do that. And that's the power of look and shoot and some of the other things that I've done in golf.
Yeah, I actually heard I stayed up late last night, or it was late for us in Australia last night, but it was probably early morning for a lot of the Europeans and Americans that were watching it. But the DP World Tour event where Rory just beat Patrick Reed, and they interviewed one of the young guys who was playing with Rory. And when the lady went up to him as he's walking off the tee box, she's like, what's going through your head? And he's like, I'm just thinking about the next shot that I'm going to hit. Sorry to be really boring and give a terrible answer, but I'm just thinking about this next shot. And she's like, but if you can get a couple of birdies, that you'll be in the mix. And he's like, yeah, maybe, but I sort of worry about this shot up here and see how we go. So he's fully dialed and sounds like he's going to have a good career ahead of him, but obviously didn't pan out that well for him last night, but I'm sure if he keeps that train of thought, it'll serve him well.
Yeah, if you listen to the great champions, the PGA Tour players, the guys on the European Tour, the DP World Tour, they often give amazing insight into what I believe is an approach very similar to what I've been written about over the years, the automatic process, the natural learning process. It's very simple, not getting ahead of themselves, they're staying in the moment. Playing instinctively, but it's awful for commentators to talk about because they've got to fill in 6 or 7 or 8 hours of commentary, and they've got to talk about something. So it's easy for them to go down the technical, pathway of talking about grip changes, and he's working with so and so coach, and they're working on their body pivot, and they go on about it. But they've got to talk about something. It wouldn't be easy if I was a commentator. I don't know what I'd talk about, but it'd be more, hey, he's just hit the shot. It is what it is. He hasn't got the, he's not in a putting slump. He's just missed 2-3 footers in a row. He'll be right. He'll sink the next one. That's how I would talk about it, but it might not be great TV.
Well, stick to your career, mate, because you seem to be doing pretty well with it so far with all the golfers that are writing to you with these low putting rounds. So we'll stick there.
Absolutely.
Mate, cool. Well, let's start wrapping this up, and let's talk about where golfers can find you and your work, and what are the best places to go to, and some of the resources they can dive into.
Yeah, well, I think a great starting point is my Look and Shoot book. It's now an ebook. In fact, it's more than an ebook. It's actually a little mini course. So you get the book, and there's a bonus audio, and there's some other materials that can help you get the most from the program, including some articles and a fast start guide. So what I'll do, Sean, is I'll put a little page together for your listeners, and they can get a special deal on it. And where can we send them to? Why don't we send them to my website, automatic.golf/fairway. So okay. Automatic.golf, and maybe you can put a link down here, or put a graphic up, and automatic.golf/fairway, and then get a copy of the Look and Shoot little mini course, ebook, and a few other things. And that's a great starting place. And once you've got that, if you're keen, you can go as deep as you want to go. I've written actually 12 or 13 books on golf, peak performance, and natural learning. So the sky's the limit.
Yeah, cool. That'll be a great resource, and I know you've sent that to me just before we recorded this, and I've started reading the book, but because you're such a diligent guy and booked the interview much sooner than I thought you would, I didn't get a chance to read through it all. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it and finishing it off. Hopefully finishing it off before this podcast goes out, and I can do a good intro and let people know about it.
That'd be ideal, Sean. No,
cool.
All good. So, check it out. It's a good little book. It doesn't take long. It's only, I think, 70 or 80 pages, and it's not meant to be complicated. And it's just about bringing your natural, instinctive putting game to the surface, so you can, sink more putts when it counts. Which is out in the golf course when you got a scorecard in your back pocket and you're trying to beat Freddie and John, for your monthly medal.
Yeah, or the $50 that they've got in their wallets.
Correct. That's even better, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Or for the first round. Cool, mate. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. Appreciate your time today. We'll send everyone to those links and hopefully get some people in my world not only swinging better and moving better and hitting the ball further, but then also reducing their scoring potential by being able to actually sink some putts once they drive it onto those par 4 greens.
No,
so
sounds awesome, mate. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the invite.
No worries.